Welcome to Fantasy Football for Everyone with Alex, Art, and Dave.
What's up, everybody? This is Alex.
This is Art.
This is Dave.
And this is Fantasy Football for Everyone. It's a Saturday morning, August 22nd. We are smack dab in the middle of week 2 preseason football. And guys, I'm telling you, that itch I've been having, it's gotten scratched a couple times watching my Packers come out. Jordan Love throwing a touchdown pass to Marshawn Lloyd against the Ones in Denver last night. I know Art's still waiting to see his boy Ron out there. They got Will Howard out there throwing ducks, but Drew Aller looks good though. And then Dave, what's up with your guys, Dave? Are the Bears starting their starters today? What's the vibe?
Actually, what was said was they were going to see how the most recent joint practice went, evaluate it, and decide if the starters were going to play. So I actually haven't had a chance to look since I got up this morning. I wouldn't be shocked if we see a series or two of Caleb, but I don't think it's going to be much more than that.
No, I feel like this is the perfect time. Like week 2 preseason, it's like, yeah, you're not, unloading the whole playbook. You're not showing every aspect of what you're going to do, but you want to get those guys some playing time. Art, what have you been excited about with preseason besides, I guess, Jeremy Bernard? Jeremy Bernard looks really good.
Well, Jeremy Bernard looks fantastic, and I think the Steelers are doing a good job of, keeping him under wraps of sorts, right? I cannot talk about the efforts last night with the Steelers. I will say one thing, and I'll say it loudly. Cut Roman Wilson. Cut Roman Wilson. If Roman Wilson is going to cut his routes, cut Roman Wilson. That is not Steelers football. Hines Ward should have come onto the field and tackled his little ass. Get out. I don't want to see any more of that, honestly. Unless Mason Rudolph went out there and slipped Roman Wilson a K so that he could, get Will Howard off the squad. Like, get out of here with this crap. Like, this professional football. You don't belong.
Yep.
Wow. Take on Roman Wilson early.
Strong Steelers takes, hurting after that 17-0 beat down from the Gino and the Jets over there. But
From the Jets. Never feels good. That never feels good.
But guys, everyone, it's been a couple weeks. We're happy to be back. Preseason 1 is in the books. We're gonna talk about what happened there. We're gonna talk about, like we just did, the games over the past couple days and how they relate to our fantasy teams. And Art has some risers and fallers. Dave's gonna keep us going on some rookies, as a lot of rookies have stepped up this year. And then at the end, we had our F4E Invitational draft over the past couple weeks. Slow draft. We're just talking about the funny thing about slow drafts is everybody's like, make your pick, and then it's over and it's like, I wish I was still drafting. So yeah, we're gonna do a little breakdown about our top performers in that draft and teams that we think suck. And then also we wanna kind of start it off. We have been in kind of like a best ball focus and a dynasty focus, but we are gonna start looking at redraft value as we are in that season. So I guess let's kick it off. Scores. We had a lot of big games week 1. What were kind of the most surprising things you saw? Maybe not week 1 since it's been like a week, but this part through training camp. Give me a point. Let's start with Art, then we'll go Dave.
I think first off, for me, it's all the injuries. And I know in our pre-pod, we talked at length about how many injuries we're seeing, and that's just kind of how it goes in the preseason. But I feel like this year, they're just more impactful injuries and ones that we're getting less and less clarity on. Like, for example, it's a new season and it's a new Christian McCaffrey injury that we don't know why. He just sat out 6 practices, right? I lost track of now how many times McCaffrey has sat out practice. I think the 49ers have lost track of how many scabs they have to put on the field to replace the fact that they have almost no players starting on their starting roster for offense specifically. But it's just the overwhelming amount of injuries, some season-ending ones, and also some ones that look like maybe they'll be cured by week 1, but maybe they'll linger beyond that. Kyle Manungai. We really don't have clarity at this stage of the game. And in all honesty, it's not the NFL head coaches and the team's responsibility to give us clarity for fantasy football's sake. It would just be nice if they did.
No, you're absolutely right, Art. And I mean, that's part of the game, right? These coaches, they don't want to show their cards. They don't want to know who's going to be available. It gives the team an edge on who to game plan against, especially week 1 when 10 teams this year have new head coaches. There's going to be a lot of different concepts going on in the NFL. And yeah, the injuries, I mean, and injuries happen every year. I think that's why I keep telling myself so I don't get upset. But also, like to Art's points, like the impact and how quickly it's happening. You know, Jaden Higgins with the ACL. We have, I mean, I have a whole list here if I, get through it before we kick it over to Dave. I mean, Brees Hall, Jeremiah Love, DJ Moore, Jordan Tyson, Kamara's out for a month. Christian McCaffrey, I have no idea what's going on. Evans is a substation victim. Alec Pierce ain't coming back. Tyler Warren's banged up. Chuba Hubbard. It looks like we got Jonathan Brooks now. Our mentioned Monangai. Burden's not practicing or playing until the regular season. Quinshawn Judkins, Isaiah Pacheco, Josh Jacobs, Jalen Higgins, Quentin Johnson, Puka Nacua, Devontae Smith, Makai Levin, freaking Michael Pittman, Carnell Tate wasn't practicing a couple days. Like, are you kidding me? This is the impact we've had. And like I said, it's been 2 weeks. That's insane. And it's not just, it's like, oh, these are players. It's like, these are fantasy impactful players. So it's going to be a lot of waiver. It's feeling like a heavy waiver wire this year, guys. But Dave, what's your kind of biggest takeaways that you've gotten this point of the preseason?
Well, two things. First, some of these quarterback battles and how they're shaping up, and as much as how they're shaping up, are they even going to matter? What we have going on in Atlanta, what we have going on in Cleveland. And to be honest with you, we're starting to get to the point in the preseason where you would like to see people very definitively putting their name next to those jobs and starting to really feel like you're going to come out with a starter that can get the receivers we need to get the ball. And at this point, we really haven't seen anybody put a stamp on any of these QB jobs that are kind of up for grabs. So, starting to evaluate the players on those offenses and kind of think about what that's going to look like as the season plays out here. We had Murray named the starter in that QB battle, but it obviously hasn't been inspirational from what you're hearing out of practices. And then just to tease something we'll be touching on a little bit later, with injuries comes opportunity, sort of like we were talking about there, guys. And there's a lot of rookies, I think, that can make an impact in fantasy this year. And, I think we see that from the first rounders year over year, but I think there's a number of day 2 picks, even a little bit later, guys that have really some opportunity to step into some offenses here and play meaningful snaps. So how some of these guys close out the preseason, we're going to talk about a little bit later, and where they may fit in with, their first team offenses, where we'll cover here in a bit, man. So those are two of the things that I'm kind of looking at as this preseason continues to play out.
No, Dave, that's perfect. I mean, because these quarterback battles don't matter. And like you said, Kyler got named a starter, and then he started chilling. He's prepping because Call of Duty comes out in a couple months. He's like, all right, got the job. We're good to go. But yeah, Tua is awful. Like, Tua is so bad. And I've been saying it. I mean, we've been saying it all off season. It's like, lean into Michael Penix because Tua is terrible. He's going to get that, maybe that first week start if he didn't already blow that already. And then it bounces back where Penix can get the start, and he will probably play good enough to keep the job as long as he wins some games. But yeah, Cleveland doesn't matter. Cleveland, they're going to start Watson, then they're going to put Shador in there, vice versa. Someone's going to blow it. They're going to start Taylor Green at the end of the year to see if they got anything from a late round draft pick, and then they're just going to suck to get to draft players next year because they got all those picks.
Alex, I have to say this. Look, in an evaluation of the Cleveland Browns quarterback scenario, and you just used 2 words, blow and suck. Yeah. And that makes me feel a little uncomfortable and cringy when it comes to Deshaun Watson. So please watch your words when you're choosing them wisely, okay?
Phrasing.
So Alex is saying how everything is going to evolve in Cleveland this year, it won't have a happy ending.
No, it will not. No happy endings in Cleveland. That's been a theme. That's been a theme this year. But no, I mean, I love it, guys. And that's exactly what we're about to lean into. I mean, week 1 was great. Week 1, we had a lot of fun games. I mean, like I said, it was just fun to see football back. Let's look at a couple of them. I mean, the Bears, obviously smoked the Browns. 2 we saw suck. Titans, I mean, I think a little concerned about Cam Ward right now, guys. Like that 5 for 12, 57-yard game. And it wasn't a pretty 5 for 12. It's not like he was throwing a bunch of balls away, making a lot of good reads. Like he was making bad throws. Do you think that's just a little bit more of growing pains, or are we starting to get a little concerned about Cam Ward?
I think it's impossible not to be a little bit concerned, especially with some of the draft capital that you're putting into guys like Carnell Tate. Carnell Tate is going as a high-end wide receiver 3 right now without any proven NFL production. And when you have a quarterback that doesn't necessarily look like he has the ability to get him the ball right now, I think you have to start to be concerned about Cam Ward. I know he's been a guy you've been high on all off season, Alex. but these are the reps where you need to start to see him taking some steps forward. He's going against some second teamers at points here and not looking comfortable in the pocket, not getting through his reads at this point. You know, we are still young. It is a new offense for him. There's going to be growing pains and something like that. But we need to see something here sooner than later before you can have a lot of faith in Cam as a guy that can put this franchise on his shoulders and carry him forward, I think.
And I think Dave's right. I think there has to be like a healthy sense of optimism and pessimism in this scenario. But I think once he gets more time with Carnell Tate, and especially Alex is going to, love Glaze in this one, especially when he gets more time with Wandale Robinson, right? So Wandale is absolutely the kind of guy who has the most trustworthy hands. He runs tight routes. He's the kind of guy that is really a quarterback's favorite. I do think things will come together for Cam Ward. I am a Cam Ward truther, as you know, but I do think we just need to have a little bit more patience. If we're into 2 to 3 weeks of the season and that offense isn't clicking, we got real problems.
No, I completely agree with you guys. Yeah, and I think that's the thesis of the whole conversation, right? It's like, let's just pump our brakes on Cam Ward a little bit. Let's not like reach for him in drafts like we've been doing recently. I mean, Dynasty Superflex is one thing, but let's like maybe like slow it down and like kind of what Art said, let's be a little patient. I mean, the offense didn't look like horrible. They drove down the field. Tony Pollard got a rushing touchdown. Like the offense like was like, effective at some points. I think tomorrow night tomorrow night the Titans play Seattle in Seattle on Sunday night, 8:00. So that's going to be a huge test for Cam Ward. If Cam Ward's able to come out of there, not make any stupid mistakes, have, a plus 60% passing completion rate, maybe throw a touchdown, I think then we're going to go where Cam Ward dropped a little bit after last game. It's like, all right, cool. We're ready to get back on the bandwagon. Another quarterback I want to talk about real quick is somebody that was really promising in their first preseason game, and then we saw him Thursday night and definitely made a couple rookie mistakes, and that's our number 1 overall pick, my boy Fernando Mendoza. Looked strong, and then we definitely saw, I think that pick 60 through Thursday night, that is a throw he's been able to make his whole entire life. And now you're not, dude. You are the NFL. These guys are bigger, faster, stronger, smarter, and you cannot just throw a little whip pass in the middle of the field, or else it's going to go back the other way. What do we think about the quarterback situation? I mean, back to Dave's point, in Vegas right now, with Kirk Cousins looking really good that first preseason game too.
You start this one off, Art.
I think, honestly, guys, I hate to say this again, be a fence sitter here, but like, there's got to be a lot of patience involved here with Fernando Mendoza. Once he's going to have some time to actually connect with Brock Bowers, and that offense is just not ready yet. And I think for Kirk, he better look good, because if he doesn't, what's the alternative? There's no room left for Kirk, right? If Captain Kirk doesn't show up for work, it's over, and that's it. This is the end of the runway for Kirk. I don't have anything particular to talk about in that regard, but I will say this, that offense will look a lot better once Tyler Linderbaum, their newly acquired center from the offseason, is plug and play. He's going to give a ton of confidence to whoever is under center, and really Ashton Genty should be licking his chops with a guy like that. Linderbaum is a beast, both in pass pro and in run blocking. So I really see that to be a massive upgrade for the Raiders, probably one of the biggest free agent acquisitions in this offseason.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and my take on it is sort of this. I'm not sure there's a better quarterback situation in the league than this Raiders quarterback situation, to be honest. I mean, Kirk is there. I think he's one of the handful of guys in the league that has a true starter's mentality, but is also willing to mentor someone behind him. We saw that little dust up with him and Max Crosby in practice this week. I firmly believe the root of that dust up is Kirk showing Fernando, like, hey, there's moments in these practices where you got to stand up for yourself. Even if a guy's on your team, you need to let him know where the line is. And honestly, I think there's some of that that's imparting leadership to Mendoza. That's just not the mentoring you're going to get in every one of these quarterback situations in the NFL. I do believe that we'll see Mendoza at some point this season. I think that's realistic. But it's also Kirk's job to hang on to as long as he performs well, to Art's point. So if Kirk shows up and plays, I don't think they're in a rush to get Fernando to the field. After week 1, I think there was that drumbeat 10 of 15, 1 touchdown, no picks, that he's going to see him sooner than later. We're going to see him sooner than later. And then you get into the second week and you realize, no, he's a rookie. But the beautiful part of this is they have a capable starter who's willing to lead in that quarterback room, is very capable of getting the ball to Brock Bowers and the other playmakers in this offense. And, Mendoza can sit and learn as long as he needs to. So I think this is just a completely comfortable situation. We know who the future of the franchise is. And I think that for the sake of fantasy production, the offense is in capable hands until we get there. So I'm very content with everything going on with the Raiders right now.
No, and to put their last game, the Raiders' last game into full context, like they played the Texans. Like Texans are one of the deepest defense, like one of the best, like top 3 defenses in the NFL. And they went and the starters, the twos, they didn't have Gentry, they didn't have Kirk Cousins playing. But they had some flashes. First of all, another guy who sucks is Jalen Naylor. He had like 2 or 3 drops. I was like, no, this guy is done. We don't want to deal with him. But Mike Washington, did you see this guy out there? Are you kidding me? Mike Washington, 9 for 56 and just blast, like the speed, the acceleration, breaking tackles and just busting through the defense. I'm like, the 1-2 punch between Gentry and Washington, they're only going to throw the ball 400 times this year. So Kirk Cousins and Fernando Mendoza aren't going to lose teams because they're going to be grounding and pounding with, like Art said, having Tyler Linderbaum as their starting center, who now with Tyler, the other Tyler, Biadasz, I don't know how to say his name, the center from the Chargers. Biadasz. There you go. Art always helps me with the names. With him going down for the season, like Tyler Linderbaum is now the number 1 center in the NFL. So I'm really excited about the Raiders. Bowers, Kirk draft late, Nando hold on to in Dynasty. Early pick is easy. But those 2 running backs, Mike Washington, if you have an opportunity to get that guy, or if you're seeing on your waiver wire, or if you want to throw the dart at the last pick in your redraft, Mike Washington is probably going to touch the ball 125, 150 times this year and could end up as a running back 2 in fantasy.
Yeah, Alex, listen, man, that was one of my biggest takeaways too, and like I say, we'll get into a rookie watch later, and I had a section in there on Mike Washington, and, through the first 2 preseason games, he's averaging 7.9 yards a carry. He's over 119 yards on 15 carries. He's already got 2 receptions. He wasn't targeted in week 1, but picked up a couple receptions this most recent week. And, the reason I think this is notable is not even Mike Washington as much as where we're taking Ashton Gentry in drafts right now. He's still the clear bell cow. He's a lead. But it is important to remember in these situations, like this new regime drafted him. They did not draft Ashton Gentry. The draft capital's there. We know he's going to get the workload, but I think everybody kind of thought this is an 80-20 kind of thing, and we may not be at that sort of split. The Mike Washington may be a much more important piece of this offense than what we considered originally. And, I'm actually pushing Ashton Gentry back 2 or 3 spots overall, just in terms of what we've seen to this point, because I think there's a role there that we didn't anticipate.
No, the Raiders aren't going to use up Ashton Gentry in year 2, right? They are going to try to prolong his life as long as they can. And we saw that with what you said, the draft capital of Mike Washington, them starting him last night and what he's showing, they're like, yeah, why would we give this guy 400 carries and have him end up like Christian McCaffrey? Let's give him 300. Let's give another 125 to another, really, really good running back. Look at Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry had probably 400 or 500 touches in his first 2 or 3 years. And now he's a 33-year-old starter, still touching the ball over 300 times a game. So, and also with the Raiders, like Clint Kubiak is freaking awesome. Like him being at the head running that offense, like for the Raiders to be down by 17 points, come back, win that game with a touchdown with Aiden O'Connell at the end. Like that's not the players on the field. That's Clint Kubiak showing like, hey, yeah, your defense kicked my ass all game. I got something for you and I'm going to bust out the win. So all good things in Vegas right now. I think we've been saying that all off season, but now they're really showing it.
Yeah. And Alex, real quickly, one last point here to what you're saying. Clint Kubiak does know what he's doing. Let's remember the level of frustration we had last year with Ken Walker and Zach Charbonnet, and thinking one guy should have clearly put his stamp on this backfield and that other guy hanging around just enough to make sure that the fantasy value of Ken Walker was essentially negated. He was playable, but the guy didn't even, barely finished as an RB2. So we should have that in the back of our minds as we're looking at Ashton Gentry in some cases as the linchpin we're building our team around. You may get frustrated as this season goes on. Let's just remember the precedent is there.
Don't forget, Brock Bowers is JSN. All right, moving on to Houston. The other side of the team. For this, CJ Stroud came out. He looked good. They didn't have Nico or Tank Dell out there, so the starting 2 wide receivers weren't playing. But CJ Stroud was managing the offense. We talked about it in the offseason. He changed his diet. He got a haircut. Like, he did what we said Trevor should have done. Like, he looks like a grown man now, not like a teenager. And he was out there and he was running that offense. He was running that offense cleanly. I thought he looked really good. But my biggest surprise from the Texas offense was Woody Marks. Woody Marks was like lightning in a bottle. Like, he came out, and I have him on a couple teams. I was like, all right, 4 for 37 in the touch. Like, he was cooking. So what do we think about the Texans offense now, as we've kind of been, like, everybody's been down on everybody except for Nico. David Montgomery's been getting a little bit of love, but how we think what we've seen from the preseason from Houston relates to our fantasy teams and where we're drafting them now.
Let me take this one real quick, Dave. I think it's real simple for me. Watching Woody Marks in undergrad when he was at USC, okay, he just was not the right kind of pass blocking running back that NFL teams wanted. Right. But everything that we just saw last week with that explosiveness, that first step, that elusiveness, it's there. Interesting. Why bring in a guy like David Montgomery? That's right. He is a boss when it comes to run blocking. So guess what? This is a real dangerous option on the offense. If Woody Marks can be a healthy, part of that offense, it's a very exciting thing for fans and for fantasy. No question. Love me some Woody Marks.
Heart loves the Woody.
Yeah, and I do. I think, no, you good, Alex?
Yeah, I'm good. I got my joke out.
Heard he's a stand-up guy.
No, listen, there has been there's been a quiet little drumbeat that this could be a true David Montgomery workhorse role. We've heard rumors there could be increased passing game work from what he saw in Detroit. And this just throws a little bit of cold water on that for me. I think it does move Woody Marks up a few spots and moves David Montgomery down a few spots. But Woody looked very effective. And, I think this is the role that they envisioned for him last year alongside Nick Chubb that never fully materialized in his rookie year. Obviously, he's a year more comfortable in the NFL. He's starting to understand some of the things that are coming at him. And I still think David Montgomery's a 65-35 guy in this backfield. But maybe it is closer to 60-40, and, Woody Marks is going to play a part of this offense. And honestly, if you're looking at draft capital and where you're taking these guys right now, I like Woody Marks 2 rounds later than where David Montgomery is, at his current price, to be truthful with you.
What's really nice to see is that Nick Chubb is kind of sailing off into the sunset, announcing his retirement just yesterday on the 21st. But that was the toughest backfield in the NFL last year because you had Woody and Chubb. Marinate on that one, guys. Let's hope that David Montgomery comes out looking athletic and isn't a stiff.
No, okay. All right. No, but anyway, I love your point. I think that's my thing with David Montgomery is he's not a bell cow, right? He's not going to get 70% snap share. But also where he's being drafted right now, I don't think he needs 70% snap share. So I don't think I'm dropping David Montgomery at all. I think he still finishes as a fringe RB1, like a, probably RB12 to 15 range. But Woody Marks could very much finish as as a top, as a running back 3 or better, where you are able to put him in your running back 2 spot, or start him as a weekly flex. So definitely something to keep our eye on in Houston. I mean, the Niners came out and they kicked some ass last night too, and I only have one thing to say about the 49ers, and that's DeJon Stribling. So tell me how right I was, guys. It's time for you guys to eat crow and tell me that I was right and say you were wrong.
Well, I never was anti-DeJon Stribling. You were the one beating the drum. You were definitely the one calling it out, and as the injuries started to happen around him, you started to feel a bit more prophetic. But I mean, listen, he looks the part right now. He's the only guy on the field building real rapport with his quarterback on any sort of consistent basis. We're at 11 catches for 109 yards through the first 2 games, running firmly with the ones. I do think that as Deebo Samuel gets a little more integrated into what this team is trying to do and finds his role, if Mike Evans gets healthy, stays healthy, we do have to temper expectations a bit. But right now, man, there's no reason to not be very high on Stribling. The question is going to become, are you going to be the dude that in your draft that pulls him 3 or 4 rounds earlier? Because it only takes one in each league. And trust me when I tell you, your league has one. But the question is, are you going to be that guy? So, and listen, we're at the point in this thing where you can find your guys and you can commit and throw your dart and say, I'm going to take him a little bit early and maybe he's the guy that wins you your league. Deshaun feels like that guy, but again, Deebo's going to become more integrated into this offense. Mike Evans could get, healthy at some point. They're going to try to run the football. So let's not think that this guy is suddenly the wide receiver 1 in this offense, pencil him in for 120 targets. Like, this is going to look very different than it does come the regular season. But with the injuries the 49ers deal with on a year in, year out basis, with the opportunities that may come in this offense, he could have a heck of a season. There's just a lot of risk baked into where I think he's going to wind up going in drafts at this point.
And look, guys, here's my thing. I was giving some hate to Dejon Stribling, and it's not actually his fault. It's more my lack of belief that John Lynch knows how to draft players in the first 3 rounds on offense. Okay? Prove to me. But look over the entire list of players that John Lynch over the last 5 years has drafted in the first, second, or third round on offense that has done anything. There have been so many players who have been cut, discarded, replaced. I mean, okay, so let's go through it, okay? We'll just do it, right? Like, why the hell not, okay?
Why the hell not? You got pulled up?
From an offensive perspective. Yeah, I got it up. It took a moment. We had that Woody conversation, but nonetheless. So, look, from an offensive perspective, specifically from an offensive perspective, how healthy is Ricky Pearsall? Unfortunately for him, not so great. So from 2024, let's just go right to it, because he did more defensive drafting in 2025 and 26 than he did in 2024. He kind of needs some guys on offense, so not sure why he chose to do that. But Ricky Pearsall was their first pick in 2024, and we see it. Isaac Guerrero, okay, as far as a skill position player, was their fourth round pick in 2024. And he's really a third tier, the third string running back. Beyond that, Cameron Latu, a tight end in 2023. What does that do for you? There's just no guy. Tyrion Davis Price in the second round, the 93rd pick in 2022. Useless. 2022, round 3. Danny Gray, a wide receiver at pick 105. I mean, who are we talking about here? And then on top of that, he goes and fumbles the bag by picking Trey Lance in the first round, pick number 3 overall in 2021. I have seen zero evidence. Yes, the first talented offensive player I see on this whole damn list from a skill position player is Brandon Ayuk with their 25th pick in 2020.
And then a couple years before.
So what are we doing here?
That wasn't them with Debo, right? That was the last regime was Debo?
Debo was a year prior. In 2019, Debo was their second round pick in the 36th slot. But it's been 5 years since John Lynch has showed me any real talent on offense. It's not Stribling's fault. It's Lynch's
You're not
fault.
wrong.
Overdrafted
No,
him.
Absolutely.
That's where the hate comes from.
No, and I think Pearsall's gotten a bad break, right? He got shot, that knee thing, knee thing didn't recover.
Agreed.
He's definitely, because he's flashed on the field. But yeah, no, I definitely can understand where, even with the draft capital, you're like, I cannot trust this player because John Lynch does, I don't trust his assessment of players. And that's the Niners' problem. And we see that consistently with their backup running backs that they try to get to cover for Christian McCaffrey, between Guerrero and Jordan James. And now Kalen Black didn't look bad last night, especially since they kicked some ass with them. So maybe figure out this year. Maybe they retooled and they had some scouting changes that we don't know. Because Deshaun Stribling, like Dave said, he looks like a wide receiver 1 out there. And if it's me and I'm seeing him being drafted as wide receiver 53, I'm moving him up my queue to a wide receiver 40. So I'm getting him before anybody else does, because I forgot who put the post out on social media last night, but over the past 5 years, rookie receivers that we see flashes like this that are being drafted in the top 60, they outperform their ADP. So if you want value and you're like, hey, maybe you're like Dave and you're like, I wasn't able to get a top 6 pick in any of my leagues, you got to find a way to create an edge. And to create an edge, you have to take risks and zig when others are zagging. All right. Okay. Let's keep going. All right. So we already talked about, I want to talk about some players that we're looking forward to or that need to impress this week. We already talked about Cam Ward versus Seahawks. The second one I want to get into is Jalen Hurts news. 3 picks, no tutties. The Pats defense just tearing them up. We got, like I said earlier, we got Smith, kind of practicing more now. He's participating more in 11-11s. Mekhi Lemon's been out. Dontavian Wicks is apparently having a good preseason, but what are the vibes in Philly right now, guys? Are we fading the birds?
It's tough not to fade them a little bit, man. Obviously we know what this offense looked like last year and never quite found their identity. Wanted to run through Saquon. It never quite happened. A.J. Brown discontented the whole year. You wonder. And listen, there is a component of being an NFL starting quarterback that is leadership. And rare has been the quarterback that has been able to succeed without being a great leader. Aaron Rodgers, I don't know if he's a guy that ever really led a room in the way that we think of, but was able to be successful. But for the most part, you need to be the guy that offense looks to. And I think it's fair to question at this point if Jalen Hurts is that for this team. You have Devonta Smith, who, some people were ready to say he could have the JSN season this year, who hasn't been able to stay on the field through the preseason. You have Mekhi Lemon, who hasn't been able to stay on the field through the preseason. He did return to practice this Thursday in a limited capacity, so he's at least back out there. When the best thing that you're hearing coming out of the preseason is Dontavian Wicks looks good. I don't, listen, Dontavian Wicks a good player. They picked him up for a reason, but I don't think that's what we want to be hearing as fantasy owners, that has been the bright spot of the Eagles offense to this point. I do think there's going to be a recommitment to get Saquon involved in, new and exciting ways. Tank Bigsby has the potential to be one of the top handcuffs in fantasy this year. I think he could be a league winner if anything happens to Saquon and he goes down. But it's tough to feel good about where we're at right now. And Jalen Hurts is going pretty consistently within these top 6 quarterbacks. When you look at some of the value that you can get later in these drafts, Jalen Hurts is a guy that I've faded completely. At his current ADP, he's not a guy that's going to be on a single one of my rosters. So, we still have a little ways to go. We've seen it from this offense in the past, but I don't feel good about anything going on in that environment right now.
So look, and to support Dave's point, Dave literally teed it up perfectly for me. This Eagles offense under Kevin Patullo was horrendous. And we saw drops for Saquon Barkley. We saw it was absolutely a dumpster fire. So we go from a minion and upgrade to a manion. And Sean Mannion's offense, being that he's part of the Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay tree, right? He's got a modern, motion-heavy RPO offense. Guess who that benefits? Well, that benefits a guy who passes like shit, like we're seeing with Jalen Hurts right now. It helps his decision-making first and foremost, right? It helps get open his speedy wide receivers, okay? Mekhi Lemon, if he gets on the same page, it's going to help out Dallas Goedert as far as his routes are concerned, because we know he only runs short and intermediate at tight end. It's going to help Devonta Smith, and you know who it's really going to help? Saquon, the quad god, Saquon Barkley. It's going to open up an entirely new game for the Eagles on that offensive end. But really, this is the time where Dave said it, fade Jalen Hurts. I've heard this story too many times, right? I've seen him look like hell preseason. I don't want to say he takes games off, because we certainly do know that Jalen Hurts is one heck of a leader, but I'm done seeing inconsistent results out of him. Take the players around him, not him.
No, I love those points, guys, because when we were looking at the Eagles this year, they went from having basically 5 viable offensive fantasy players in Jalen Hurts, Goddard, Barkley, Brown, and Smith, and now they have 6, 7, 8, right? They have Stowers, they brought in Hollywood Brown, they brought in Wicks, they drafted Lemon. Tank Bigsby could get more playing time, especially, if they want to preserve Saquon for the next couple years. I think people are going to start fading Jalen Hurts, and I think Jalen Hurts kind of he has to show that he could come out versus Patriots defense this week and not throw any interceptions, maybe throw a touchdown. So guys, I think that this with Jalen Hurts, I love your takes where it's hey, draft the players around him, but if the players around him succeed, he's probably going to succeed. So yeah, right now we might want to fade him because there are better options, but I would say if he really drops down to that quarterback 8, quarterback 9 level, then I'm all in on Hurts, because he definitely has top 5 quarterback upside. They're still running the tush push. He's still going to use his legs. So right now I agree with you guys. As a top 5 quarterback, let him fall. If he falls down to that quarterback 9 level, then we're drafting him again. Oh, and one more thing before I know Art wants to say something. Dave mentioned that Aaron Rodgers isn't much of a leader, but that's because he's more of an owner than a leader. So go ahead, Art.
If it's draft day, right, and you're looking at your tiers, you're looking at your rankings, you're looking at your ADP, all the things we're trying to coach you guys up on, and you see your options at quarterback are Jalen Hurts, Caleb Williams, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence. Now, you might not be able to make a case for Trevor Lawrence, but I might want to reach through my screen. I may want to reach through my screen and slap you if you don't take Caleb or you don't take Justin Herbert. Sorry, bank on the upside. I just don't see it out of Hurts right now. It's borderline frustrating at this stage of his career. If he's going to be this inconsistent, I want no part of it.
No, Art, and I think you just segued perfectly, because we didn't talk about the Chargers getting beat by the Niners last night, but the Chargers offense looked really bad with their series. They came out and played. Omarion Hampton, 1 rush for -1 yards. Herbert missed a throw to McConkey on 3rd down. He was getting pressured. His throws looked good, and it looked like he was under control of the offense, but they just looked really messy. Did you guys check that out at all last night?
Look, Alex, you said it earlier. We talked about Tyler Biadasz going down.
Yep.
Right? That's a hallmark of their offense at center. He's been out for, 3 or 4 days? they're going to have a lot of ground to catch up on right now. So no question they would look messy in their first shot at trying to look good on the offensive line. Dave.
Yeah, I mean, the injury to their center is huge, man. And I believe they have both tackles healthy, which wasn't really a thing for them last year. So you do hope they can find a way to plug that. But the middle of the line is about as important as it gets. And there were a couple things that when I noticed the run game last night, Hampton did have -1 yard. That's on a single carry. But with some of the Mike McDaniel's coach speak heading into the season, I think people have gotten a little nervous about Hampton. What's Keaton Mitchell's role going to be? Keaton Mitchell played beyond the point Hampton did. Did get touches with the ones, obviously, but he's 3 carries for -1 yard. So this idea that Keaton Mitchell's so explosive the minute he touches the ball, it's over. Amari and Hampton role is going to diminish. I think this is a problem that's going to affect this entire offense to a degree. And you're right, Herbert looked in command of the offense, but it did look sloppy overall. But I do think with a couple more weeks, Mike McDaniels, the Chargers aren't a team I'm worried about at this point. If anything, my takeaway was I'm surprised at where the 49ers are with some of the adversity they've been dealing with early in camp. But Shanahan never surprises you when he has his team ready. So, I'm not overly concerned at this point. Herbert threw 2 passes, so it's really not anything of noteworthiness to me. I still feel comfortable about the Chargers, but that O-line could be a problem. It certainly could be. And so that's what we're going to have to keep an eye on in these last few weeks of the preseason. How many first-team reps does this offensive line get? You would think they're going to get some because they're going to need to gel. And when you're trying to put the guy in that's kind of running the show in a center, you would think that they're going to give him some opportunities to take snaps together. But, yeah, I'm not too worried about the Chargers yet. But, boy, that was a sloppy game last night.
Guys, I really feel like the Chargers are cursed. Like every single year they have a promising team. They have a promising offensive line. Like they're finally like, we're going to make it. They have a brutal injury. I don't know if you guys remember a few years ago, Peyton Manning did that show, Peyton's Place, and he went to Detroit, and they had the curse of whatever that they cut some quarterback in the 50s, and he was like, you guys will never win another divisional title since you cut me. And then they went and did their seance at Ford Field, and then they won the division. Like, that's what needs to happen in LA, like at SoFi right now for the Chargers. Like, like they need a witch doctor, they need voodoo, they need to, pull in Doctor Strange, like something. Like, they need to figure out how to get this curse lifted because there is so much talent on that team, and every year, like, the Chargers are so promising, and we are just like, why does this always happen?
It's tough on the West Coast, man, between the Chargers never performing, the 49ers injuries, the Raiders being perpetually terrible. Like, there's something about those Cali teams you got to watch out for, man. It never goes the way you want it to. Outside of the Rams. And they're transplants from St. Louis anyway, so I feel like they don't got that bad juju on them. You know what I mean?
They say it's a West Coast problem. They're not as gritty as the East Coasters or Midwesterners.
That's exactly right.
All right, cool. So speaking about Midwest team a little bit, the Bengals, I mean, there's a lot of talks about the offense and Joe Burrow getting hit a couple times last week. But also looking at, like, I was doing one of my Draft Nation articles for Read the Room on the Bengals last night, running some numbers. Like, the Chargers The Bengals had a top 14 offensive line and only allowed 36 sacks last year. And Joe Burrow still missed like 8 to 10 games last year. And we saw Joe Flacco come in, play promising. And I guess what I'm leaning into is I feel like we see the Bengals having an offensive line problem. Does Joe Burrow just have an availability problem?
Wow. That's a tough question. I mean, here's the thing. Even when Burrows is able to hobble out there and play at 75% of what he is, he performs, man. I mean, he plays well. I do think the Bengals have some sort of issue here protecting him and keeping him upright. But Joe Burrow has never impressed me as this guy that wants to mail it in when he gets hit. I mean, he still stands in there and gets clocked. I'm going to be anxious to see what happens in the game this week, obviously, because, they're playing against my boys, and there's been a lot of interesting news coming out of the joint practices. But Burrow is a guy that I'm always going to believe in. If he's available, I think he is a top 3 stand in the pocket and throw it quarterback in the league from now until, the next 10 years. But I don't know that it's a Joe Burrow problem. I do think it's an O-line. I think it's a Bengals problem. We'll see. Time will tell. But if Joe Burrow stays upright, he's fine. He's fine. But it's a good question, man. I wish we'd have prepped for that one a little better because there's a lot to get your wheels turning. Is it a Joe Burrow problem?
Got you thinking a little bit. All right, let's move on. Let's keep
Yeah.
it throwing so we get to Art's segment. So my next take is Dart needs to play smart. Dart needs to play smart. We need to watch that guy sliding. We need to watch that guy running that bounce, throwing the ball away. Like he's out there on the podium. He's like, why? I feel like I'm like, he was like, I appreciate like them taking care of me, but I feel like I'm being targeted. It's like, dude, you're smacking your freaking head. Oh, you're headbanging out there. You're at a rock concert. So what do we think about the Jackson Dart take? I know Art, you drafted a little preview. You drafted him in the F4EI. Are we into Jackson Dart, or is he kind of like, do we just not trust that he's gonna stay healthy? And you guys already know how I feel about Matt Nagy.
Look, if it's a redraft league, I'm worried about Jackson Dart. If it's a dynasty and keeper league, I'm worried about Jackson Dart. Yeah, I'm worried about Jackson Dart. For the record, I don't want to give it any more air. Bro, you're one of only so many starting quarterbacks in the NFL.
Mhm.
You are the face of the Giants, okay?
Yep.
Because we damn well know Scatabo is not going to be the face long term of the Giants. They have to do what they do.
Yep.
Can you just shut the fuck up? Like, just drop it, bro. Move on. Be a professional. Done with that. Like, stop giving it airtime at this point. That's what you're there to do. Let them do their job. How about you protect yourself? Or how about you just, ask the Giants to cut Tyrone Tracy?
Mhm.
No,
Love it, Art.
I got to be honest too. The Giants are another one of those offensive environments that I don't feel fantastic about right now. I mean, we've already seen the most uninspirational pep talk from John Harbaugh. We know what Matt Nagy brings to this. Jackson Dart's a good player. I don't think he's in a good environment. It sounds like Malachi Fields is pushing hard to be the wide receiver 2 in this offense. And I don't know that you wanted him to step directly into that role. Malik Neighbors a little bit banged up. Isaiah Likely not necessarily taking the snaps that we've expected him to take here in the preseason. Some more question marks around him for me. The backfield's a little bit of a mess. I don't think the Najee Harris, he's coming off an Achilles. We don't know what this means long term, or if he even makes the team, to be quite honest with you. But the fact that they felt the need to make the signing makes you a little bit uneasy, man. I mean, it can't say that Scatabo looks like he's 100%. Tyrone Tracy is the guy that fanned on the block. There's just a lot about this team that I don't feel great about right now. The most exciting thing that could happen for me with the Giants right now is Jameis Winston gets to start 4 games. Honestly, there's nothing I love here right now. And again, Dart's another one of those guys, to my point, like Hurts. We're passing on guys like Brock Purdy in very healthy offensive environments. I know that we have some questions that we just asked about the Chargers, but we're passing on guys like Justin Herbert, like where Jackson Dart is being drafted in the quarterback hierarchy right now. I don't have any reason to feel very good about him returning ADP. Like there's just other guys that I feel like are in better offensive situations with better play callers that are going to put their body at less risk, that are going 4, 5 rounds after Jackson Dart right now. So, it's an offense right now in general that everybody that I was looking at on that offense, Jackson Dart, Cam Scatabo, Malik Neighbors, these are all guys that are looking like they should be going a little bit later to me right now than where they're currently going.
No, and I think you're exactly right, Dave. The Giants just feel really gimmicky right now, right? Like they brought in Harbaugh, they brought in OBJ, they signed Najee Harris. Like I feel like but like there's no promising of like, hey, no, we're gonna take this team to the next level. I feel like they're bringing in all these players for like nostalgia or to be like, look at who we got, look at what we're doing. We're playing fun football so they could sell tickets, but I don't really see them being competitive with the Eagles, or definitely not the Cowboys, who have been on the super hush hush this year. Like, I don't know, man. The Giants, to your guys' points, vibes are all the way down. And to your point directly, Dave, like we're drafting a guy like Dart, like 6 or 7 overall. When we got Money Malik sitting there at QB 10, QB 11, that looks like a stud out there that rushes and actually slides, that runs out of bounds, that protects his body, that he will have more rushing yards and probably more rushing touchdowns than Jackson Dart this year. And he's been able to stay available. He has a, running back 1 with Devon A-Chain. The wide receivers looks like the passing game is like looking like a significant passing game. So, I mean, I think Money Malik, like they play against the Giants, and that's why I have him right here. So I think he has to kind of be consistent and go out there again this week and score another touchdown and show that he can run this offense. But no, give me Malik Willis in a redraft, one quarterback. Give me him in like the 11th, 12th, 13th round. I will take DeAndre Swift over Jackson Dart in the 8th all day.
Absolutely.
And then the last player, this longest segment ever, but the last player I want to talk about was just to say, or the situation is just to say it's offense, losing Jordan Tyson. They're playing against the Rams, who's a top defense. I mean, Jordan Tyson, like, he was falling in drafts. I don't have him anywhere because I was worried about the hamstring and his injury history all through college. And now we're seeing it already. So, what are our thoughts, guys? Are we completely off Tyson? Do we think he comes back? I just want to give you a reminder that right now he's supposed to be out for 2 months, and his first game back is supposed to be at MetLife Stadium. So, what do we think about Tyson? Give me Dynasty and give me redraft takes.
Dynasty, I mean, I think the talent profile is still too significant to be completely off of him. But, this is a guy that was a clear, no matter how you saw things, top 3 to 4 draft pick in every rookie draft this year, pretty much. I mean, I think if we were to go back and redo that today, talent profile, draft capital, all those things aside, there are a number of people I would be drafting ahead of Jordan Tyson for the long term. He would be back half of the first round for me in Dynasty if you haven't done your rookie drafts. Redraft, I don't know how you can feel good touching him. I mean, listen, reports out of camp were that he looked great. I mean, all the buzz was that he's running the right routes, he's getting open, he looks explosive, he's making plays. But we're about to miss a month of season prep in your rookie season. I personally couldn't see using a top 10 to 12 pick on him in redraft. Now, if he falls to the point where people aren't touching him at all, sure, that's a dart throw that you're going to take and put on the bottom of your bench. And if he comes on for the second half of the season, he could very well be a league winner. But, his ADP has not changed to reflect where I feel comfortable taking him yet. I will say, another piece of this puzzle, though, as we're seeing all these articles and people's takes on who's this year's JSN, like Chris Olave moves up several spots for me with word that Jordan Tyson is out for at least a month. Like Chris Olave is going to be a target hog in this offense. We always have to be slightly concerned with injury with Chris Olave, but Chris Olave uncontested from Jordan Tyson for the first month plus of the season without re-aggravation. I mean, 150 target season is well within the realm of possibility for a Chris Olave now, and maybe even north of that number. So Chris Olave, like I say, he jumps up a couple spots for me in terms of where I like him. But Jordan Tyson, too much talent to completely fade in Dynasty, but he's a 10th rounder or lower for me now in redraft. But he's a dart that I'm willing to throw at the right price.
Love it. Doesn't look like Art has an opinion on Jordan Tyson.
No, I think I'm going to mention him in our risers and fallers segment.
All right. Well, perfect segue, Art. Let's get into some risers and fallers. Let's go. Let's kick it off.
There
Tee
we
it
have
up,
it.
Tee it up for us, buddy.
I tend to be the kind of guy who likes to hear the bad news first. But in this case, we did call it risers and fallers, not fallers and risers. So let's start with the risers, and we'll go from there. We'll keep it short per riser, okay? So one of the biggest riser out of the bunch in the last 10 days is Stephon Diggs. We've seen Stephon Diggs jump 30 spots, right? That's almost 3 rounds of ADP for the newly signed Washington wide receiver. There's opportunity there. It should make a big difference. I think it's really interesting. The word, though, out of camp is he somehow found a way to give Jaden Daniels a high 4 instead of a high 5. For whatever reason. Either way, our next riser, Caleb Douglas. The ambiguity, if you will, the uncertainty in the Miami wide receiver core. Caleb Douglas, not to be confused with Pop Douglas, has gone up the list, and in some cases, 27 spots. 2 rounds higher just because of that inconsistency. I don't know that I don't like him a ton. I mean, Malik Washington has shown to be really interesting with his speed. So I don't want to really fall in love with either, but Caleb Douglas is rising the ranks.
All right, let me jump in on the Caleb Douglas take real quick because, obviously there was going to be a Caleb Douglas segment in my rookie watch. A guy that I think Alex and I are going to have a good relationship over for years to come because I snaked him in our dynasty draft 1 pick in front of Alex. based on Alex's advice, of course, and Alex's advice only. But listen, only one catch in the first week of the preseason, 28-yard highlight reel, one-handed catch that showed the playmaking ability we're looking for. You know, a third-round guy, so those later day 2 picks don't always pan out early in the season, but here's the difference. You know, the reports right now are that he is pushing to be the wide receiver 1 there. I know that we have heard wonderful things about Malik Washington and how he looks early in this preseason, but let's be honest. If your only real attempts to fix your wide receiver room are third-round draft picks, well, I guess they did have Chris Bell, who was injured, but, you know, Kevin Coleman later in the draft, I think you have to say at that point, this guy looks great and is ready to be a number 1, right? What are you going to say? We mismanaged our entire receiver room and we're screwed? No. So I'm not saying that Malik Washington can't be an important part of this offense, but I am saying I think there's reason to put a little asterisk next to this guy's murdering camp and looks like a true 1. Caleb Douglas, you know, you're talking a guy that's 6'4". He just is built like a prototypical wide receiver 1. We're talking a quarterback in Malik Willis who had almost an 80% completion percentage over the course of his time with the Green Bay Packers. I do think he'll take some downfield shots. Malik Willis is going to surprise some people this year. Listen, Caleb Douglas is my dark horse candidate for Offensive Rookie of the Year. The opportunity is there. I think he's going to be on the field an absolute ton. He has the body type and the skill set to be a wide receiver 1. Caleb Douglas is a dude that I'm going to be leaving drafts with all year. Even at his risen ADP, I think he has a clearer path than a Deshaun Stribling to being the true lead dog in his offense. And I think you're going to see Stribling go a round or 2 before where anybody's considering taking a Caleb Douglas. Caleb Douglas is going to have every opportunity in the world, especially early in the year, to put his stamp on this job. Now, Chris Bell has returned to practice in non-contact, but week 1 is basically 9 months from his ACL surgery. I think he's a factor within the first 6 weeks of the season. And, you know, you could see a shuffle at that point, but Caleb Douglas is going to have an opportunity early on to develop rapport with Malik Willis and to become his true trusted go-to guy, which I don't think you can understate what an opportunity like that looks like. So Caleb Douglas, I don't think people are quite high enough on him yet. He's a guy I'm all in on this season.
No, and just to tie into
Great
Dave's
points,
point, what Caleb does, like, and I've obviously been a big fan because I have one. I'll try to make this quick. I have one fantasy dynasty draft that we do the Monday after the draft in April, and I had a 3rd-round pick, and I had my eye on those Dolphins receivers because, you know, there's nobody there. Unless there's some dark throws, especially big rosters so early in the draft. And, you know, at that point, I go draft capital matters. They, like Dave said, they drafted 3 wide receivers between the 3rd and 4th round, and Caleb Douglas was their guy. That was the number 1 they wanted. He's a big receiver, 6'2", I believe, wide frame. He can run. He could run block, which is huge for the Dolphins, especially with Devon Achane and the way they want to run the ball wide and use their zone type offense. And Caleb Douglas, like with that one catch, 1 for 28, but it was a gorgeous catch, and him being able to show the skill set that he has there is only becoming more promising. And honestly, out of those 3 receivers, most people were taking Kevin Coleman first, Chris Bell before him coming off the ACL. Chris Bell hasn't even gotten on the field on 11-11. We don't know what we could do. So so Caleb Douglas, like to your point, Art, to your point, Dave, I'm all in. And just to your Jaden Daniels point, Art, like, he's the reason why we're not called Fantasy Football 5, everyone. And continue.
Yes. Guys, listen, I just got to say this real quick. There's a legitimate chance that the Dolphins have drafted their entire wide receiver core for the next 5 or 6 years in one draft. I mean, literally. Again, we have to take them at their word on Malik Washington a little bit, but Coleman's going to be that slot guy with a tremendous amount of talent. Bell and Douglas both profile as guys on the outside who have looked good to this point. Like, I'm not sure we've really seen anything like this before. And again, it's way too early to say that it happens, but it's something that we need to keep an eye on. Like, they grabbed 3 guys that have roles in this offense, have shown well to this point. You know, once Bell gets fully healthy, he had great college tape, but they literally could have taken their wide receiver core for the next half decade in one draft, which would just be a really cool thing, to be honest with you. I can't remember the last time we had something like that happen.
You know, Dave, I think I do remember something very similar to it. Alex, let me stick this point while we got it. I think the last time I remember something like this happening was similar to when, and there's not a joke. There's not a joke here. When the Steelers
I knew you were going Steelers.
they had Mike Wallace. They drafted him 1 year, and the following year they drafted Emmanuel Sanders and
yep.
Antonio Brown.
Yep.
And then that became the Young Money Crew, as they call themselves. And that became 3 guys who got paid an unbelievable amount of money, whether it was by the Steelers for Brown, by the Dolphins for Mike Wallace, or by the Broncos for Emmanuel Sanders. Those 3 guys were legitimately a force to be reckoned with.
Yep.
And you know what, Dave? You make a really salient point. They got their talent. They didn't need to go early. This was a wide receiver heavy draft this year. So, I mean, maybe they did play their cards and snake all the other teams in the NFL.
No, and the Packers, I mean, another homer point. Packers did year after year, especially with Sully coming down and being their GM in Miami right now. Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones in the same draft, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, taking Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave. Like, this is a strategy that, multiple teams have used, and the Dolphins identified, hey, our biggest need is wide receiver. Let's just throw a bunch of shit at the wall, and hopefully, 1, 2, maybe all 3 of them stick. So, yeah, but no, that's great. Art, great points, taking us down tangents, but keep going with your risers, buddy.
All right, well, Dave had teed me up previously. Another riser is Dejon Stribling. That's the obvious case. We've made our point for Stribling most of this pod, so I won't stay there. 3 more risers. Jonathan Brooks. Again, we made that point. He's up almost a full round in most leagues for ADP. Pat Bryant for the Broncos has sneakily crept up the list. And I think that's because mainly Marvin Mims is not to be trusted. I think at the same time, his head coach is not to be trusted in Sean Payton.
Yes.
But he has results. So you can't argue the results. You can argue, his methods and how he gets it done and how the fantasy community receives him. But yeah, Pat Bryant has gone up the boards. And Dave, if you have something there, I've got one more after your point here.
No, you made my point, man. It's just that I love the Pat Bryant hype. Jalen Waddle is a guy that has an injury history, and Jalen Waddle starts games and then comes hobbling off in the second quarter and then maybe comes back late in the third. And I think there's going to be opportunities for Pat Bryant. I love the talent. I just don't trust him at all to actually be on the field with any sort of consistency. They asked him how you're going to keep him off the field. And, Sean Payton's like, we're not. I just don't believe it for a second. I agree with you on the Marvin Mims take, but they just refuse to seem to truly lean into their talent. In the initial depth chart they released, Marvin Mims was listed with the 1s and Pat Bryant was listed with the 2s. And it's just like, I just don't believe there's going to be enough consistent volume there to like Pat Bryant. Love the talent. If you have an injury to Cortland Sutton and Jalen Waddle or a combination of guys there, I like what he can be, but I just don't think there's a path to consistent enough stats. They're going to figure out a way to get Troy Franklin on the field for no real reason. Like, it's one of those situations I don't love.
The Troy Franklin point is taken well, absolutely. I think the fact that they got rid of Deshaun, no, that's not his first name. I'm sorry. Vele, whatever Vele's first name is.
Devon Vele, Devon Vele, yeah.
Devon, thank you. Thank you. So I think, it opens up that spot for Brian, and Dave's point, well taken. I think Cortland Sutton is 49 years old, and
50.
Waddle has an injury history, and I think, there you're perfect. Yes, he just had his golden birthday. I think, when it comes down to it, the opportunity certainly is there, and if anything, it falls in his favor. He's got a good shot because he is talented. Now, the last of my risers before I head to the fallers, this is someone where either Alex is going to be like super giddy over or just be like, nah, you're wrong. And that's Marshawn Lloyd. And Marshawn Lloyd has jumped up more than around 15 spots of ADP. And I think really he looked explosive this week. And tell me I'm wrong. Marshawn Lloyd looked like he had command of the offense for a running back who we all are aware of, but he looked astoundingly different than what I recall last.
I can't believe you can recall anything last. All I recall him doing previously was tweaking hamstrings and sitting on the bench. So I would say anything is going to look better than that. But it's clearly a player, and Alex can speak to it better than me, that they've believed in, and believed in to the point where they let Emmanuel Wilson, who was extremely effective when he needed to start last year, walk. So they must feel like those issues are behind him, and they must have, a real level of confidence in him, because let's be honest, Josh Jacobs is a guy that's got some question marks swirling around him right now. And Marshawn Lloyd may be forced to step into a significant role in this offense. And obviously the Packers think he's in a place where he's able to do that. So I definitely understand why he's climbing upwards, but again, Alex, you can speak to that better than I can.
No, absolutely. And Dave's absolutely right. Like Marshawn Lloyd has been hurt since they drafted him a couple years ago out of USC. But over the past 2 games he started, and game one, he didn't look great. I mean, you could tell that his confidence wasn't really there. He's taking smaller steps. He's not, opening up. He's not hitting the holes super cleanly. And then last night, you saw that confidence build. And after he had that touchdown reception, like he was on fire. And then you really started him to take those strides, hit the holes with more acceleration. And I just want to see, that's what I was looking for in Lloyd last night when I was watching that game. I could tell week one he didn't have that confidence, just not trying to get hurt. Last night he started, going after Patrick Surtain, going to drop the shoulder, like making those cuts at the right time. So no, I think Marshawn Lloyd is only gonna continue to rise. So right now, if you have an opportunity in redraft to grab a significant RB2 in the 13th, 14th round, you take him because, like Dave just said, Josh Jacobs might, miss some time with his hammy that he has right now, and there's word of, suspension from what happened over the summer. So we really, Marshawn Lloyd is not a bad player to have on your team right now.
So, gents, that'll roll us into the fallers, and I'll keep these very, very concise. These have to do with two things, really, either injury or change in opportunity of the players above them. And we talked about Jordan Tyson. He has dropped down the board 27 spots in ADP. I mean, that's 2+ rounds. Jaden Higgins, I mean, obviously out for the season, poor guy, but that provides opportunity for other teammates. Alec Pierce, there is no good news about Alec Pierce. And I think what that means is a guy like Josh Downs is a guy like Josh Ups at this point, because really the talent is there. And if Pierce is maybe not making the field for week one, what? I mean, I know Alex has a point to make here.
Oh, I mean, Pierce took the money and run, baby. He took the money. He's running. I mean, he's limping, but yeah, I mean, Alec Pierce, I don't feel like should have gotten paid that much in the first place. Like, it was really like one spike season, and with his talent profile, like he is not, a 120, 140 target guy like they were trying to say that Pierce was in June after he signed that contract. No, he's a downfield guy. He's going to cap out 80, 90 receptions. He's going to have huge, YPT yards per target, YPR yards per reception numbers, which is valuable in fantasy, especially if you have 40, 50-yard reception bonuses. But he is not the guy that I want as my wide receiver one. I mean, I'm looking at him as wide receiver 3 all day, and he's being paid like a wide receiver 1. But another point, I mean, Josh Downs, yes, he's going to be the target monster, but Keenan Allen, pick him up off waivers. Nobody's picking him up off waivers. Like, they signed him to play that role. Like, because who else do they have? They trade away Adonai Mitchell. Who is it? Like Doolin, whatever his name. Who is their wide receiver 3 or 2 in Indy right now?
Tyler Warren, tight end, like 1 or 2 season incoming. Like, listen, it's gonna go to Tyler Warren. Like, Keenan Allen's nice. He'll draw some coverage. He'll look good early in the season, just like he did last year for the Chargers. This is Tyler Warren to the moon, and honestly, you know how high I am on Loveland being a Bears guy. I think he has the potential to have an all-time tight end career, but this pushes Tyler Warren ahead of Colston Loveland for me.
Wow.
I still believe Colston Loveland can be the number 1 target in that offense, but he is going to be competing with Luther Burden. He is going to be competing with Rome Odunze. They love what Khalif Raymond is doing there right now. Like, there's a number of targets around him. And Josh Downs has already been nicked up once or twice through the preseason and missed some time. Like, this is Tyler Warren to the moon. Like, Tyler Warren is your clear tight end 3 now behind McBride and Bowers. And, I honestly think the gap to Loveland is significant just because of the target share that's going to be available to him, man. And that's, it's an area that Danny Dimes eats up the middle of the field there. So listen, you can name some other receivers and Keenan becomes interesting, but this is Tyler Warren puts his stamp on tight end 3. And this is the guy that's the biggest riser as a result of this injury, for sure.
No
Dave,
question.
I love that.
Guys,
I was
let me scoot back to it.
No, I was going to ask Dave if
yeah.
All right, go ahead. All right. We're locked in, guys. We're locked in. Dave already knows the questions.
My last 3 for the fallers is an opportunity one, not an injury one, but Antonio Williams in Washington with that signing of Steph Diggs that we mentioned as the top riser. Antonio Williams drops down the board 1.5 rounds. in ADP. Some injury news that we don't quite know how to deal with because he's a physical freak is Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end for the Jets. We didn't see him last night, obviously, against the Steelers. Really, he's an absolute monster. He's dropped 16 spots in ADP. And then it really sucks to see this young, talented guys getting injured. But we do know that we've seen Kyle Monangai drop a bit because of his most recent injury and the inconsistency, or inconsistency of what we're hearing out of camp specifically. So he's fallen down the board a bit. But guys, that's the extent for me at this stage for the fallers.
No, great job, Art. That was
Well done, Art.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
All right, let's keep it moving. And I mean, that was everything. He was giving us rounds. He was give us how many positions they dropped. That was fantastic. But Dave, we've gotten into rookies a little bit. I know you got some more here, and then we'll talk some rookies, and then we'll do a little F4E draft recap.
Yeah, we'll keep it moving, guys, because we are running a little long here. Now, we've already touched on a number of guys. Stribling, Mike Washington, we've touched on in Vegas, Caleb Douglas, how Mendoza's kind of started this whole thing, but again, we're going to see some opportunities for young guys earlier in the season this year than we probably have in years past. And we're going to have to weigh a number of things as we look at these opportunities, right? Opportunities come available to rookies typically because the offensive environment says we need playmakers, right? So we got to remember as we talk about these guys, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. There's going to be opportunity, there's going to be time on the field, but is it in an offensive environment that we feel great about? So these are the things that we're going to want to weigh as we kind of look through these guys. As we've talked about a couple guys coming in single classes, one of the places I want to start is in Baltimore, with both Jacoby Lane and Elijah Surratt there. So Lane had a fantastic start to the preseason, ran with the ones, 3 catches on 3 targets for 38 yards and a touchdown. Looked very effective doing it. Elijah Surratt went 7 targets, 6 catches for 66 yards. So Surratt was very involved in the game plan, and I believe actually led the team in targets in that first preseason game. I think the path to meaningful snaps at this point is a little clearer for Jacoby Lane. I actually, there are some reports saying he's pushing to be that wide receiver too. So I think that comfortably puts him in the fold in the top 3 receivers. You're going to have Flowers working out of the slot, probably with him and Bateman on the outside. And let's be honest, we're in year 5, year 6 of Rashad Bateman. We know what he is and we know what he isn't. This guy's not a game-changing receiver. He's had some useful weeks for us in fantasy in the past, but good luck ever having him in your lineup when he's had a useful week. Jacoby Lane is the kind of guy, again, very similar to Caleb Douglas's build, 6'4", 205 guy. Looks like a prototypical wide receiver 1 on the outside. And I just think the opportunities are going to be there. Surratt, you're hearing that he's pushing for the wide receiver 3 spot, but they do still like Devontae Walker. I don't think we can eliminate Rashad Bateman from that conversation. So very encouraging start to the preseason from Surratt. Good to see them getting him targeted and involved early. But I think the path to, running with that first team offense for this upcoming season is much clearer for Jacoby Lane. And again, a guy I'm not afraid to leave drafts with late. The word on Mark Andrews out of camp right now is that he looks slow and way off the pace. And they probably made a huge mistake by letting Likely leave and keeping Andrews. It's, most of what you're hearing is he is not ready for the speed of the NFL anymore. And so, he's lived in that red zone when you're inside the 10-yard line. Can he still be a target? Sure. But I also think you're going to be designing some slant routes for Zay Flowers, and you're going to look at your new 6'4", 205 toy that can go up and win a jump ball in the corner of the end zone. That's going to give you a tall-bodied wide receiver that you haven't had in years. And I think Lamar, he's embraced this new offense. He's embraced the direction the team's going. I think they're going to look to get a new exciting piece involved early. And I do think that's going to be Jacoby Lane. So Lane's a guy that I'm certainly going to grab in the late rounds of my drafts, put on my bench that I think has a maybe even startable floor early in the season, but could have a really nice stretch run as he grows into the league and grows into the offense. Let's go to another crowded rookie receiver room in Cleveland. Now, again, we consider the offensive environment. It looks, they haven't named a starter yet, but going by what we've seen, Deshaun Watson is the lead dog in this category, right? I know opinions for the most part are that Deshaun is washed. This is temporary. But with what we've seen of, the quarterbacks coming behind him outside of that rookie green that they have, I think Deshaun keeps this job unless he really throws it away. And let's not forget, there is a version of Deshaun Watson in the past that played at an MVP caliber level. So after a season off, is there a chance that he could become a serviceable NFL quarterback? I think that's a possibility. So We're going to look at Casey Concepcion and Denzel Boston. Judy is still working with the first team, but again, we've watched Jerry Judy slowly decline here over the last 2 years. And the nice thing here is Concepcion and Boston profile so differently. They're already manufacturing touches for Concepcion in the run game. He's had a 14-yard rushing touchdown in their first preseason game. He's caught 3 balls for 27 yards. He is on the field with the ones nonstop. Denzel Boston, more of that big-bodied outside receiver. He's only caught, I believe, 1 ball through the preseason. But again, he's running with the ones in Judy. And I don't think the path to overtaking Judy as the primary outside guy is an insurmountable hill to climb. I like Concepcion a little more early on in the season just because I think his role is more clearly defined in that offense. And I do believe they're going to find a way to manufacture touches for him. But those are guys that we're going to have to watch. And again, an injury to a guy like Jerry Judy puts Denzel Boston very firmly in the conversation of guys we're going to have to watch down the stretch. So again, Concepcion a little over Boston there for me, but exciting because these guys are both getting on the field with the ones. We've not talked about Jonah Coleman. He's been touching the ball in Denver. Dobbins has been a little hurt. I still expect him to lead that backfield, but Coleman's getting some good buzz coming out. One thing I think we needed to watch after the first week of the preseason, and again, some things we look for a little later, but rookie quarterbacks really had an interesting start to the preseason. We had Mendoza, who we've touched on. But Carson Beck came out and has looked fantastic so far. 15 and 19, 188 and a touchdown with no picks. Now he's currently out with a rib injury, so he's day-to-day, didn't play in this most recent preseason game. But Carson Beck is a guy that as the season goes on, I think can step into a starting role. I don't know how important he is for us for fantasy, other than if you love Trey McBride and you're ready to gamble on a Michael Wilson or a Marvin Harrison resurrection, just know that there may come a point in this season around playoff time for you in your league where Carson Beck could be the guy throwing him the ball, right? We don't expect the Cardinals to win a lot of games. At a point with what this quarterback draft should look like next year, you need to decide, do we have something in Carson Beck or do we need to take a top 5 pick and turn it into our franchise quarterback? So, Brissett has looked great in the preseason, is clearly the starter. But if these guys lose 7 or 8 games, in their first 10, I don't see a reason where they don't give Carson Beck a shot just to see what you have in the guy. And he's looked good so far. Ty Simpson, fantastic out of the gates, 21 of 25, 190 yards, 2 touchdowns. Now, there's no job in the league safer than Matthew Stafford's, so this is certainly a play for the future, but very encouraging to see. Another guy that I think, we could keep an eye on, and again, we're thinking more about the skill position players and what that means for these guys if these guys ever get, sort of the helm handed to them, but it's Cade Klubnik, man. I mean, I don't think we have any reason to believe that Geno Smith is a completely protected, untouchable starting quarterback. And I think you're going to see the Jets in a very similar situation. Klubnik, 10 of 14. Yeah, just what was it? I guess last night against the Steelers for 75 yards, went 5 of 7 for 56 week 1. Looks very comfortable, very capable back there. Looks like a guy that's played a fair amount of college football. And they may want to take a look at him as the season progresses and say, is Cade Klubnik, a potential beyond this year with Geno, or do we, as a team that's probably going to have a top 5 pick, need to think about what the franchise looks like moving forward? So there's just some guys you need to pay attention to. A couple key rookie injuries here. Obviously, we know Jeremiah Love, a high ankle sprain. And listen, no one will ever understand why you're giving 14 carries to the future of the franchise in preseason week 1. I think we call that learning curve, and Mike LaFleur wound up on it in all the worst ways. But I will say, Love looked fantastic in the touches that he got. But when you hear there's surgery is not required, let's not pretend that this is going to be a high ankle sprain on the lower end of things here. I expect this to, go possibly beyond the 4-week point. Who knows how long it is before he feels completely comfortable cutting on it and doing everything that he needs to do. So this injury could linger a little ways into the season. This could be hanging over Jeremiah Love legitimately for the first month of the season. And, with the lesson you just learned, are you going to rush him back when you feel like you have very capable player in Tyler Algier, when you've got some experience behind him? I think we really need to watch Jeremiah Love. And honestly, for me, Love falls into the 3rd round, at least mid-3rd round. I mean, I can't see risking a higher pick than that, knowing that for the first month of the season, he may not even be full speed. And I would think a workload management comes along with this injury. So I think he can be extremely productive on a per touch basis. I don't think he has to touch the ball 20 plus times a game to find a place in your lineup, but I don't think the environment and the situation is great for him for a guy that you're taking late second, possibly in the early third, that you may miss the first month of the season of any real effective production. So Carnell Tate back at practice on Friday. We're very happy to see that. Took a huge hit in joint practices. Missed a couple days with stiffness. Obviously not fantastic in their first preseason game. 3 targets, no receptions. We touched on the Cam Ward thing a little earlier. I don't think we have to worry about Tate's role in this offense. He should still be wide receiver 1. He should still be the target leader. And, it's just going to be a matter of does that work? But we're happy to see him back in practice. I'm not really moving him around on draft boards too much at this point. Mekhi Lemon returned to a limited practice on Thursday. We've had the Hurts conversation and the Philly offense conversation in general. So the sooner Mekhi Lemon can get to be a little bit more effective and get integrated into this offense, the better I think it is for that team. But again, with as much of the preseason as he's missed, Mekhi Lemon's a guy that I think you felt like, hey, he's not going to step into A.J. Brown's role, but there's a ton of targets vacated there. He has a legitimate role in this offense. He's a guy that I can throw a dart at in the 8th or 9th round. It could be the second half of the season before Mekhi Lemon becomes an important part of this offense. Better draft capital in Mekhi Lemon, but I liken it to the situation with Luther Burden last year. Luther Burden missed most of training camp, was, on the field for some snaps in the early part of the season. Got some very efficient metrics out of him, but certainly wasn't a guy that was game planned for, became a part of the offense till very late in the season. And I think we could find similar things with Mekhi Lemon. We are hearing good things about Dontavian Wicks out of camp. He comes with NFL experience. I mean, this offense should start with Smith and Wicks, the number 1 and 2, and it may take a while for Mekhi Lemon to break into that role. So, I'm dropping Mekhi Lemon a little bit. And those are most of them, guys. There's some other buzz names that we're going to need to keep an eye on. Obviously we know Cyrus Allen in Kansas City. He is running with the ones, is being treated like a starter. Only 2 catches for 20 yards in that opening game, but all reports out of training camp are that he is Patrick Mahomes' go-to target right now, especially as Rashee Rice is looking slow to recover and Travis Kelce's looking old and, Xavier Worthy's looking hurt as he always does. So we have to keep an eye on because, again, just opportunity can breed statistics in the long term. And so Cyrus Allen, we're keeping an eye on. Katron Allen and what he means in that backfield. Rashad White's been down with a hamstring. As we've been on this podcast, actually, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt was just moved to questionable, dealing with some kind of injury in camp in the time that we've been, recording here. So, Katron Allen took 23 carries for 85 yards and a touchdown in the first preseason game. It shows me that they're looking to see if he can handle a workload, and depending on how this backfield shakes out, there may be one to shoulder. Nick Singleton, a guy, 8 for 31, nothing to write home about there, but again, a guy that could find himself with some opportunities in a new-look Titans offense. So just quick rookie recap there, man. But again, the guys that I think we're really looking to make differences on early in the season here are your Striblings, they're your Caleb Douglases. Again, I like Jacoby Lane and what he might be, though we may not see real production for him for a little while. But some guys to definitely think about. And I'll say this, man, I think that we could get to the end of this year as sort of a bold prediction and say more rookies were flex-worthy plays this year than we've maybe ever seen before. I just think there's a tremendous amount of talent coupled with a tremendous amount of opportunity, and I think we could be talking about a number of these guys.
Yeah, but Dave, I thought this was a bad year for rookies. I thought this wasn't a good draft for rookies. The top picks weren't worth anything, and now we see it's like, no, it's not a bad year for rookies. It's like us fantasy managers, we didn't do our research. We had our eyes, we wanted to see Skylar Bell and Kevin Coleman and all these players that we like in college, but we're not looking at the draft and the opportunity. So it's like, no, guys, like these picks were valuable. These players are valuable, especially like Dave just said, we see all these injuries happening and we have players that were number 382, like Caleb Douglas being now drafted in the 7th, 8th round of Dynasty, rookie Dynasty startup leagues. And it's really crazy, but Art has to go pick up Millie Saturday, daughter day. So Dave and I are going to round this out. Dave, fantastic job with the rookie segment. I mean, that is so in depth, so locked in, and listen, guys, everybody that's listening, listen to those takes because like Dave just said, we are going to see a lot of these players be, potentially be valuable assets on your fantasy teams this year. And a lot of these players in redraft leagues will go undrafted, will be drafted late. So just, take the time, do your research to do your correct build. But Dave, do we want to break down the F4EI draft recap?
I mean, do we wait for Art? Do we push this a day and maybe try to get it in here in the near future?
Yeah, shoot a little teaser. Maybe we'll do one tomorrow night. We'll get the F4E draft recap going tomorrow night.
Yeah, I'm in for that. And we can give them a little teaser, man. I mean, this was a very balanced draft with a bunch of engaged individuals, and I think it's going to be a high level league, man. What were some of your takeaways from the draft?
No, I right there with you. I mean, I think we have a really good group involved. I think it's very kind of what the vision was, exactly where we hit, right? Love it when playing comes together. We wanted to bring in different styles of players from all of our personal leagues. So, because what ends up happening, and all your fantasy managers know, is you're in 20 different leagues with the same 30, 40 people. And the players that everybody likes, who they have on other teams, and that makes it more predictable to how to build your team. And then ultimately what happens? You have the same team in every league. This league, we had no idea what anybody was doing at any point. It was so many wild cards, so many different strategies that we, had to pivot. Dave and I being right next to each other. It was every other round, it was you mother, taking each other's guys. I stole Malik Willis right in front of him, sought revenge, and stole Caleb Douglas right in front of me, which really broke my heart. Right. But don't forget, you also stole Carnell Tate. Well, not steal, because I already had two receivers, but I was going to take Carnell Tate, and you took him right in front of me too. So I was like, it was a very fun draft, and I can't wait to break it down with you two tomorrow night to see our opinions on how teams built, panned out, and kind of their projections throughout the season.
Already living with so much regret, man. It's so you can look at your team and absolutely love it and still live with so much regret, right?
I mean, there are a couple things actually no, my biggest regret drafting this team was taking Tank Dell before a Stribling, before a Caleb Douglas, not going on the rookies earlier enough. But now I'm in a good spot, with Jaden Higgins out. Now I got wide receiver 2. So if the draft was this week, that's where I probably would have made this exact same move. So I'm all right, that's not bad. I'll take it. I also have Marshawn Lloyd on that team. I got Nando. My quarterbacks are definitely, I got a little sneak preview. I got Nando, I got Money Malik, and I got Mr. Daniel Jones. So quarterbacks are a little skeptical, but I built good receivers. Upside running back, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it's, man, and I was in a similar spot where, I like the probably average age of my team. I think I have a core here that can go for several years, but, already a little nervous about a pick like Scatabo. With what we've seen from the Chargers, where I took Amari and Hampton, I'm starting to feel a little should I have gone 2 quarterbacks to start the draft? But felt great about May falling to me at 9. You can't beat that. I think I have a young tight end core, as much as that's something you don't want to get excited about, between Colston Loveland and Terrence Ferguson, that could be difference makers moving forward in our tight end premium scoring. You like to impress yourself sometimes, right? So when I saw what was happening with the quarterbacks and realized I wasn't going to get 2 that I loved, especially 2 young guys, and I was able to kind of go, okay, maybe I can grab Stafford as a second starter here late, and then in a couple rounds take Ty Simpson. It felt good to pull that off. Will Ty Simpson ever turn into anything? We don't know, but it was encouraging, that first preseason game. So I'm anxious to get in, break the league down on a little bit more in-depth level here, talk through some of our guys, give them some shout-outs, give a couple of them a little bit of grief, and we'll see how it all goes.
Hell yeah, but no, great being back on here with you, Dave, Art. Thanks for getting in here. I mean, great segments today, guys. Well, guys, make sure you follow us on Instagram at Fantasy Football for Everyone. We hit our goal, 150 followers. We had mock draft battle, which Art won. Art got the most votes. Good job, Art. Ryan came in second place, so he gets the consolation prize. We have Rippin' and Flippin' sending him his card that he won. Oh, we also got to see, I got to do a little spin on everybody that voted to receive the 2025 Topps Jahmyr Gibbs card that Rippin' and Flippin' was sponsoring. We're actually going to get them on the show over here before the season. Maybe rip some cards on the pod, talk fantasy over there with our boys. But yeah, other than that, make sure you check out Draft Nation, read the room. That's my series, Busting Out Dave series. Art has a bunch of really cool fantasy articles on there. Make sure you sign up for a RotoWire Smart Money Tool fantasy football tool, 10% off first purchase F4E. What you got for him, Dave?
Man, we're into week 2 of the preseason here. It's coming a week later than it normally does. So, let's make sure you're in your mock draft rooms. We've watched ADP change so much in the last 2 weeks, and it's going to continue to do that right up until the day of your draft. So just make sure you're actively mocking so that you're prepared for what you're walking into, and let's see what happens here this second week of the preseason, who stands out, who doesn't. And outside of that, bear down.
Ugh. All right. That's fine. You're allowed. I'll allow it. But no, thank you, everybody. Like I said, follow us on Instagram. Follow us at... Oh, go ahead, Dave.
No, I expected a Go Pack Go coming right back at me. I didn't even think I would have time to think about it. It was just Go Pack Go.
We already won. We crushed them. We crushed the Broncos. We're good. On to week 3. But yeah, make sure you check us out on YouTube, too. We've gotten a lot of views on YouTube, so watch us on YouTube at Fantasy Football for Everyone. Check us out. Now's the time of year, guys. You gotta lock in because once the season starts, we're just pivoting from that point on. But everybody, thank you for listening. Make sure you like, follow, share. And for Art, for Dave, for yours truly, F4E out.